safety education and community outreach. And whereas the 2025 Fire Prevention Week theme, Charge into Fire Safety, lithium ion batteries in your home, serves to remind us of the importance of using, charging, and recycling lithium ion batteries safely to reduce the risk of fires in homes and communities. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the City Council of the City of Auburn does hereby proclaim October 5th to the 11th, 2025 as Fire Prevention Week throughout the City of Auburn, issued this 22nd day of September. So, thank you. All you do. Thank you.
Mayor Amara, Council, thanks for that. That was quite a long proclamation, and I'd like to thank the NFPA for that. And just rolling into Fire Prevention Week, I just wanted to provide some stats. It was established, the NFPA was established, excuse me. The NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, established Fire Prevention Week in 1922 to commemorate the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. That fire burned approximately 21 acres, destroyed 17,500 buildings, and displaced over 100,000 people. The purpose of Fire Prevention Week is to educate the public on fire safety, to reduce fire-related injuries and deaths, and it remains the longest-running public health observance in the United States. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. This is the time set aside for council members and/or the public to ask for removal, postponement, or a change to the listed sequence of an agenda item. This agenda will be approved by a consensus of the council. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Public? Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval of the agenda as proposed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine in nature and will be approved by one blanket motion with a roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless persons request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and separate action. Any items removed will be considered after the motion to approve the consent calendar. Do I have anyone from council that wants to remove any items?
Yes, I just would like to remove item 9, please.
What?
9.
Anyone else? I'd like to remove item number 7. And anyone from the public? Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Councilmember Riddell Harris will be marked absent for this vote. Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Dowden Calvillo.
Aye.
Holmes.
Aye.
And Mayor Amara.
Yes, thank you. I'll go in order. Item number 7, authorization to accept funds from the California Fire Foundation. I see we're getting a large amount of money to do some fire safety along roadways. Is that correct?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. John Rogers, your fire chief again. Yes, we applied for a California Fire Foundation grant. This would be the second grant from this foundation that we've received. The last one was for $20,000 worth of work right near the roundabout on Borland Avenue, and that treated approximately 4.9 acres. This round, we applied for $25,000 worth of funding to treat the ingress and egress in the Roby Point area. We were awarded $15,000 for that. Myself, Public Works Director Menjel Dean, and James Tabor have been working to identify some areas in the Roby Point to clear the trees in the public right of way and open it up for our better access for our fire engines to get in and our community members to get out in the event of emergency.
Okay, so yeah, that's my question. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So it will be mostly clearing trees and some brush?
Yeah, it'll be trimming the trees out of the public right of way. So the stuff that's hanging over the streets, the
Okay.
canopy.
Okay, so I was, thank you very much. I was concerned about the use of Roundup, but it doesn't sound like that's going to be an issue.
Tree trimming only.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no questions on that. Does anybody else have any questions on this item?
Since you mentioned it and you mentioned Roby Point specifically, I just want to make sure that, when we're tree trimming, and it's in the public right of way, but sometimes the tree is on someone else's property, but it's going into the public right of way. So just make sure that we let the property owner know. So if it's a tree that's on their property coming into the right of way, we're going to trim it. It just is notification, that's all. So.
Yeah, and I think we've had that discussion to make those
Yeah,
notifications. when we
some
go.
neighbors mentioned that, so I just wanted to go on the record, and I know that we do that for the most part, but I just want to make sure that we hit everybody so that we're not having that again. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Anyone from the public have input on this item? Thank you.
Can I just add something too? Our administrative volunteer, Jeff Michaels, completed the application for this. He was going to be here this evening, but had something else come up. So I
Thank-
just wanted to
okay.
thank him for his efforts. on
Thank
that.
you. That's excellent. We appreciate that. That was a volunteer that applied. Thank you.
Wow.
So do I have a motion?
I'll move approval.
A second?
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Riddell Harris is absent. Davis.
Aye.
Dowden Calvillo.
Aye.
Holmes. Mayor Amar.
Yes, thank you very much. Item number 9, stay right there. Fire Department staffing change.
Yes.
Um,
S-
Down Calvillo.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. So Chief, I totally understand why you're making this request, and I absolutely support keeping our firefighters safe, and not putting them in harm's way. They're already in harm's way fighting fires and attending to medical emergencies and things of that nature. The reason I took this off is just to talk about how important I feel that risk management position is. You know that. I've been incredibly supportive when we first established it. With that said, again, I recognize the need to reclass this now because we just it's a safety issue. But I will say that if we do find the sustainable means necessary to reestablish that class, I would be the first to ask that we do that. That position was able to secure more than $1 million in grants for us. I'm very appreciative that we have someone not on staff, but a volunteer who's able to take some of that grant writing. We're incredibly fortunate to have that. And our firefighters work very, very hard, but I'm hopeful that at some point, we are able to bring that position back because I think it's very important for us to have it. So, I am going to support this because again, I need to make sure that our fire department is safe. And, so I will support it, but I just wanted to go on the record, I guess, for that purpose, is that I do see the value in that position, and I'm very hopeful that when we have the funds necessary, that we can bring it back. So that
Thank
was
you.
all.
Yes, any further comments on that? Anyone from the public? Oh, yes.
Mayor, council members, Eric Croft, President Local 4110. I'd just like to take this time, thank you for supporting this. Just actually take this time to recognize Chief Rogers. For someone that's been in this department so long, he's really recognized this, and I know he's he cares a lot about this risk reduction too, but he recognized the issues that we're having on the staffing. And I just wanted to be recognized on that he's doing everything he can to make sure that his guys are taken care of and that the community's getting the best protection that they deserve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Then I think I asked for comment from the public. Anyway, any other comments? Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval. Second.
Councilmember Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Dowden Calvillo.
Aye.
Holmes. And Mayor Amar.
Yes, thank you very much. On to public comment. This is a time provided so the public may speak to the council on any item not on this agenda. Please make your comments as brief as possible, not to exceed 3 minutes. The council cannot act on items not not included on this agenda. Items may be referred to staff or placed on a future agenda. I personally have a public comment I'd like to address right now. I have been asked by many people in Auburn community to say a few words about the incident that occurred the week before last at the Auburn Courthouse and the hate literature that was spread around town. On Saturday evening, 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, many in our community witnessed a disturbing protest in which a group of Black hooded men wearing masks and shouting racist slogans came to Auburn to demonstrate. While the Constitution protects the right to lawfully protest, I want to be very clear. Auburn rejects anti-Semitism, racism, and every form of hate. These views have no place in our community, and they do not represent who we are. I am proud of how Auburn responded. APD, along with Placer County Sheriff, worked diligently to ensure the safety of our citizens. And to those in Auburn who may feel threatened or unsafe by the presence of this situation and the hateful literature, I want you to know that our city stands united with you and for you. Our town's strength has always come from unity, respect, and resilience. We will continue to demonstrate those values even when outsiders bring hate to our doorstep. Auburn is and will remain a community that values dignity, inclusion, and safety for all. So with that being said, we have a lot of positive things in Auburn, but I do want to express that Auburn, our city council, is inclusive and loving. So in any case, I want to move on to any other council people that have public comment. And you will get at the end of our agenda, the commissions, we talk about our committees and the upcoming events in Auburn. So, but is there any other public comment? Anyone from the public that would like to come forward and make a statement about anything? Okay, then we'll move to item on the agenda. And the first item of business is the Active Transportation Plan and Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. Jonathan?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Jonathan Wright, Economic Development Director. If you recall, about a year ago, we awarded a contract to Fair and Peers to begin this process. It was just over a year ago. And last July, it was asked that we bring back an update to the council. So working with Fair and Peers and their team, we have put together a presentation for this evening, kind of get the council up to speed on where we are with everything we're working on with the Active Transportation Plan, as well as the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. So presenting tonight for Fair and Peers are going to be Rob Hananucci and David Moore. So tag, you guys are it.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. Mayor Amara, council members, my name is Rob Hananochi. I'm a senior associate with Fair and Peers, and very pleased to have the opportunity on behalf of my team to provide this update on the Active Transportation Plan and Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. All right, 1 second here while we get the presentation going. All right, next slide, please. Brief overview for the presentation tonight. I'll begin with a little background about the project. We'll discuss the action plan, the safety action plan, and particularly the goal that will be associated with that comprehensive safety action plan. We'll walk through some of the proposed recommendations that are being contemplated currently for the Active Transportation Plan, and discuss next steps. So begin with a little background about the project. So first of all, what is active transportation? So active transportation is any human-powered travel mode. So that could be walking, bicycling, using a scooter, or any sort of mobility assistance device such as a wheelchair. An active transportation plan, or ATP, is specifically a citywide plan that looks at creating a comprehensive and interconnected network of facilities that support those active transportation modes. It's important to note that an active transportation plan, because of its citywide nature, really is intended to look at this at a network-wide level in terms of facilities. It also includes programs or policies to help guide future city decisions regarding active transportation. It also will include a list of projects and a prioritization of those projects to implement the plan itself. In that development of the network, it does anticipate or consider feasibility. But what it doesn't do is get into every little detail with regard to the different network and facilities that are being proposed. So for example, it might show that we want bike lanes on this particular street or a protected bikeway, but it may not get into the nitty-gritty details of how does that affect directly the business that's directly adjacent. While it considers, the feasibility of the implementation, it may not get into those specific details. That happens once you are actually designing those facilities and going out to implement them. Wrong button. All right, and a comprehensive safety action plan is a citywide plan as well. Its focus is to reduce or eliminate serious injury and fatal crashes. We analyze crash trends to understand what are the primary contributing factors to existing crashes in the community. It identifies potential countermeasures that can be implemented to either reduce the crash severity or crash frequency in the city. It's important to note that the CSAP, Comprehensive Safety Action Plan, includes all modes of travel. So this includes both the active transportation modes as well as driving or any vehicular modes as well. So why should we prepare an ATP and CSAP? One key point is the ATP essentially is an update to the city's bicycle master plan, but it also incorporates all those other active transportation modes in addition to cycling. I believe the current bicycle master plan was last updated in the early 2000s. So this is about 20 years. It's about time for an update. And as a result, this plan helps to document and understand what the existing conditions are for both walking, cycling, as well as transportation safety. The entire intent of these plans is to promote safe and efficient travel in the city. It also helps the city meet the requirements for various grant funding programs that the city will then be eligible for to go after grant funding to then implement these improvements. Another important role for these plans is it helps to identify or establish this is what the community values when with regards to safety and transportation in the community. So for example, if there are projects that Caltrans has in mind, or the unincorporated county, if Placer County has a project in mind, this is something that the city can then point towards and say, hey, as part of any sort of transportation impacts or transportation improvements that may be associated with something that Caltrans or the county is doing, this is what the city would like to see, particularly on those facilities that are near to or adjacent the city, or that they affect the city. A little background on the project. As part of the startup of the project, we've identified these 4 project goals in collaboration with the community and city staff. Those goals are to enable all to move safely by walking, biking, rolling, transit, or driving, increasing the number of trips made by walking, biking, or rolling, improving bicycling and walking mobility for residents, visitors to key destinations by improving network connectivity, and to keep bicycle and pedestrian networks well maintained. So as Jonathan mentioned, we've been hard at work at this for about a year now. During that year, we began by assessing the existing conditions, looking at where there are existing bicycle facilities, where the existing sidewalks are, where there are sidewalk gaps, looking at existing crash history, looking where existing collisions are. We've met with both city stakeholders, city staff, as well as Placer County staff. I would like to point out that while the city of Auburn is moving forward with these 2 plans, The Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, PCTPA, is also doing a countywide ATP. In addition, there are several other cities in the county, including Roseville, who just recently adopted their ATP. Rockland is also preparing an ATP as well. So all the communities here in Placer County are kind of rowing in the same direction. So we've been meeting with our counterparts to make sure that we are coordinated. We've conducted several events in the community to get community input. That includes attending various different community events. Starting last fall, we attended a September Fest, I believe, last year, and the initial outreach was intended to solicit feedback from the community in terms of what concerns they have about walking, biking, safety, what they would like to see. We have a website that has an online web map, which provided the community an opportunity to provide their comments with regards to what they would like to see. Most recently, we have created a map of proposed facility recommendations. And as part of that effort, we have gone out and had stakeholder engagement meetings with the business community, as well as cycling advocacy groups, as well as hosting a community workshop just earlier this month to solicit community feedback on those proposed recommendations. One key component of these plans is that the development of these plans was funded by a federal grant program called the Safe Streets for All grant program. And as part of that Safe Streets for All grant program, one of the requirements is that the city adopt a goal as it relates to transportation safety, in particular, how to reduce or eliminate severe injury or fatal crashes. So to provide a little bit of background for the context for developing that goal, we wanted to provide just a high-level overview with regards to crash data in the city. So the bar chart on the left shows all the crashes that have resulted in injury, at least those that get reported, in the Auburn planning area in the bright kind of neon green. As you can see, those have ranged anywhere from about 100 to about 150 per year, if we look at the timeframe of 2017 to 2023. And those have actually generally been going up slightly over that time. The dark green bars are those that are fatal crashes or crashes that have resulted in some sort of serious injury. As you can see, those are ranging right around 20 per year. And similarly, those have also been on a slight upward trend over the last several years. The pie charts on the right show what percentage of those crashes involve various different modes of travel. And one key takeaway here, you can see that 9 out of 10 injury crashes, or all crashes, involve a vehicle, whereas about 10% involve bicyclists or pedestrians with regards when it comes to all crashes that result in injury. KSI, that is a shorthand way of saying those crashes that result in fatalities or severe injuries. And by comparison, about a third of those involve pedestrians and bicyclists. And that just shows that those cyclists and pedestrians are more vulnerable to severe injury and fatalities when they're involved in crashes. Here's a map kind of just roughly showing where those crashes occur. Probably is no surprise that the Highway 49 corridor is a primary area where a lot of those, particularly those severe injury and fatal crashes occur. The data is very consistent with the feedback that we've received from the community. Many community members have expressed concern about the safety along that corridor. Unfortunately, it does cut right through the city as it heads to I-80 as it comes from North Auburn.
Has it been cut down since the sidewalk was in?
Or
is this steady before?
This looks at the last 6 years of available data, so that's 2017 through 23. We actually just recently got 2024 data kind of summarized. We'd have to look at the trends to see if there's been any change over the last couple of years, because that sidewalk project, I believe, is just a couple of years old, if I remember correctly. So as I mentioned, these plans are being funded through a grant program called the Safe Streets for All. The goal of that program is to prevent roadway fatalities and serious injuries. And one of the requirements of that grant program is for the city to adopt a goal with regards to reducing or eliminating those severe injury and fatal crashes, with the kind of overall intent of valuing, human life. The grant program does outline two options that are available to the city, and ultimately it'll come back to this council to adopt an overall goal that the city will commit to. Those two options that the grant program identifies as just kind of bookend ideas that the city can consider is to identify a long-term horizon or some sort of horizon at which point you would hope to achieve zero roadway fatalities and serious injuries. So that's the example option number one there, where we're showing that example of by 2045, the city of Auburn will achieve zero roadway fatalities or serious injuries. Another option available is to identify some sort of percent reduction with an ultimate goal of zero deaths or severe injuries related to transportation crashes. So in that example here in option two, the city of Auburn would be committed to reducing the number of roadway fatalities and serious injuries by 25% by some sort of year. In this case, we're identifying 25% of 2023's baseline year of 21 KSIs every 5 years with the eventual goal of zero by 2045 as an option.
Sorry, can I ask a quick
Yes.
question? So on the map, it had a lot of them were on Highway 49. So we're responsible for the injuries that happen on a road that we have no control over? Is that, because Caltrans is responsible for that road and improvements made to it. Is that correct?
Correct. So in this case, you would be advocating for this. These are the improvements we want to see along that corridor, acknowledging that it would be Caltrans' responsibility to implement.
Okay.
But this would be an opportunity for the city to partner with Caltrans to say, these are the things that our city wants to see with this intended goal.
Got it.
The good news is that Caltrans is also similarly on board with this particular approach with trying to reduce and eliminate severe injuries and fatal crashes throughout the state.
Great. Thank you.
I will point out that this goal is intended to really be a target, right? With the hopes of really seeing those numbers come down. But just as for reference, some of those cities that were on the kind of forefront of this particular movement to see this reduction, like the city of San Francisco, city of Sacramento, they set these goals for themselves maybe 10-ish years ago with the goal of like eliminating these by 2027, 2030. And those cities have struggled, to be completely frank. They are making progress, but even they have struggled with meeting their ultimate goals and are looking at pushing those years out a little bit. But nothing to say like the city can take an aggressive stand to say, this is what we want to see with the goal of implementing those improvements to see those reductions, but come back to revisit it if necessary. All right, I'd like to kind of pivot to kind of walk through how we've developed the recommendations for these plans, and then we'll walk through what that looks like. So with looking at bicycle facilities in the city, we've applied the Federal Highway Administration guidance on preferred bikeway types. This guidance from the FHWA really is intended to identify facilities that help most riders, most of the community feel safe when riding. The primary factors with regards to identifying the particular bicycle facilities are the amount of traffic, so traffic volume, which we typically measure in what we call average daily traffic, ADT. So that's what the volume you see on vehicles per day going on the left-hand side of this chart. And then speed. So the higher the speed of the vehicles adjacent to the cyclists, usually the less comfortable it is for people who are riding bikes. So speed going from left to right and kind of increasing. And what this diagram essentially shows is that when you have low speed, low volume streets, so think of your neighborhood streets, your residential streets, sharing the road with those types of conditions tends to feel comfortable for cyclists. As you see more cars adjacent to you, as you see cars driving at faster speeds, you need more separation. So whether that's a bike lane or a separated bikeway, and as you get to those navy areas, that's what FHWA would recommend to make cyclists feel comfortable. We also looked at improvements for pedestrians and for walking in the city. That started with identifying where there are sidewalk gaps in the community. So there are, as you know, many historic neighborhoods around the city that don't have sidewalks, or in some cases only have sidewalks on one side of the street. So we began by looking at where there are gaps in those areas. We also looked at key destination areas. So downtown, Old Town, the business districts near schools, parks, public facilities such as the library, the transit station on Nevada Street. We also wanted to consider potential implementation feasibility. So we know some of, especially along those older streets, you have utility lines, you have drainage swales. So all that infrastructure needs to be considered as well, where maybe it's feasible to implement sidewalks on one side of the street, but maybe not on both because of the constraints. And then lastly, we were one of the key kind of points where a lot of crashes or where users tend to feel the most uncomfortable are at intersections. And so we've looked at high frequency crash locations, community feedback on locations that are perceived to be dangerous or unsafe, as well as areas where we see opportunities to modify the roadway or intersection design to improve the visibility for drivers, for all users, as well as to reduce high-speed vehicle maneuvers. Because when vehicle speeds are high, that's when higher severity crashes tend to occur. And so based on that, we've identified a number of intersection locations in the city where improvements can be made to address those issues. A little background before I walk through the recommended or the draft recommended network. There are 4 classes of bicycle facilities that you'll be seeing in these maps in a couple slides. So just to walk through those very quickly, we have Class 1 off-street paths. Those paths are both for cyclists as well as pedestrians. The example shown here kind of shows it's particularly shows a route or the area for cyclists to use, but in many cases, those off-street paths are shared for both pedestrians and cyclists. It's completely separate from vehicle traffic. If you're familiar with Roseville or Folsom, both these communities have, or the American River Trail down in Sacramento, those would be good examples of Class 1 paths. Class 2 bicycle lanes, these are kind of more conventional, which you think of when you think of bicycle lanes, usually denoted with a stripe, as well as a pavement marking indicating that that space is directly for cyclists on the street. A more newer bicycle facility type is called the Class 2 buffered bike lane. So this is a bike lane, but then has extra stripes to provide additional separation between the cyclists and the vehicles, essentially giving cyclists just a little bit more comfort, a little more area to ride, and know that vehicles are supposed to kind of travel a little bit, give them a little more space. Class 3 bike routes. These are roadways where cyclists share the street with vehicles. Occasionally, these have pavement markings, which we like to call sharrows. So that's that marking there with the bicycle and the 2 triangles. An example of this here in Auburn is along High Street, currently has those sharrow markings. A slightly more elevated version of a Class 3 bike route is called a bike boulevard. So a bike boulevard is a type of bike route, again, where cyclists share the road with vehicles, but may introduce things like traffic calming and additional pavement markings that just really emphasize that this is a street that's prioritized for cycling. And the newest classification is called Class 4 separated bikeways. These are, again, on-street bicycle facilities, and then separated from vehicle traffic, both by additional striping, like you saw with the buffered bike lane, but also some sort of vertical separation that could be vertical delineators that are shown like in this example. It could also be like a raised planter or something that provides that physical separation between cyclists and vehicles. With that, I'm going to walk through just very briefly the recommended network. This is primarily going to focus on the bicycling facilities. There are a number of recommended sidewalk facilities, crosswalks, intersection improvements, like I mentioned. It would make the map very cluttered if I were to show all of those. We do have that available and accessible to the public, though, on the project website. And there's an interactive map that we currently have live that where we're actively soliciting community feedback on these recommendations. So focusing first, I'm going to make my way from the southern part of Auburn up through the northern part of Auburn. Based on that FHWA guidance, because of the speeds and the amount of traffic, traffic volumes, Class 4 separated bikeways are going to be the primary recommendation on many of the streets, particularly the arterial streets in the city. So that's what you're seeing with those light blue colored lines along Auburn Folsom Road, for example, or Indian Hill Road or Maidu Drive here in South Auburn. Again, those Class 4 facilities provide a little bit more physical separation, particularly on those roads that are higher speed, like those that I mentioned. We're showing Class 2 bike lanes along Sacramento Street, some Class 3 bike routes in and around the Sky Ridge neighborhood, a Class 1 path that would connect down near Maidu. Technically, that's outside the city in State Parks area, but showing how that could connect up to Pacific Avenue near Railhead Park and Overlook Park. And as part of that kind of comprehensive network connection, also showing a Class 4 separated bikeway along Pacific Avenue. Moving into central Auburn, downtown on Old Town, where we are right now. We're continuing to show that Class 4 separated bikeway on Auburn Folsom Road as it comes down the hill and towards the courthouse. We're also showing Class 4 separated bikeways along Nevada Street, Fulweiler, Elm Avenue. Again, your kind of major arterials, Palm Avenue. We're also showing proposed Class 4 facilities along Highway 49. Again, that's going to be Caltrain's responsibility to implement, but again, it's just based on the volumes and speeds of that roadway. That's what would provide the safest or most comfortable facility for cyclists. In and around downtown, particularly along those streets near Placer High School, heading towards Roby Point and towards the Stagecoach Trailhead, we're showing Class 3 bicycle routes, again, kind of indicating that these are facilities that drivers should anticipate seeing cyclists, particularly for going towards those key destinations where cyclists would want to travel to. And then lastly, here looking at North Auburn, showing Class 2 bike lanes along Dairy Road and Luther Road there in the city, and Class 2 buffered bike lanes up near the airport. This area also shows quite a bit of area in the unincorporated county. I would like to point out that we did coordinate with PCTPA on their recommendations for the unincorporated county. We're including this in this plan because it's part of the Auburn sphere of influence and part of the area that's being looked at for the Auburn general plan. So we're coordinating with that effort to make sure that we're looking at this area, recognizing it's still part of the county today. So ultimately, most of these facilities you see here are actually what's on the county's countywide plan, and ultimately would be the county's responsibility to implement, unless at one point this becomes incorporated into the city. If it became incorporated into the city, then these would be then the city facilities for the city to implement. All right, I'll wrap up here with just walking through the immediate next steps. So we are continuing to receive community feedback through the end of this month. So we have just a few more days left where on our website, we have a tool where people can provide their feedback on these recommendations. Again, you can toggle through there both the bicycle as well as the pedestrian, sidewalk, crosswalk, and intersection improvements. We will then incorporate the community feedback as well as any feedback we received tonight from the council into the final recommended network and improvements that get incorporated into the plan. And then we will be preparing the draft plans. In terms of timeline, we anticipate completing that community engagement and finalizing recommendations this fall, developing the draft plans through the end of this year and into next year, early next year, with a target of having the draft plans posted to the city website the first quarter of next year. Then be bringing these plans to you for adoption next spring. And that would conclude my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. So I'll open it up to the city council. Do we have any questions? I'm
Yes.
sure we do.
I have some questions.
Okay,
Yeah.
Councilman Holmes.
The number of injuries and fatalities were sort of grouped together. Do you have the numbers of how many fatalities there were on Auburn streets?
Yeah, so we do have very specific, the specific number of fatalities versus severe injuries, as well as anything that results in a minor injury as well. So don't have those numbers directly offhand. My colleague David Moore is here. I don't know if he has it offhand, but if I remember correctly, the fatalities are roughly about half of those KSI numbers. So when you see about 20 per year, roughly I anticipate about half of those are fatal crashes and the other half are serious injury crashes. So serious injury, those are things where, someone is, taken to the hospital, has like some sort of really major, life-changing injury, as opposed to a minor injury might be, whiplash or something along those lines.
Well, my other question is, there's a bike lane on Nevada Street that heads north that ends abruptly before it gets to Bullweiler. And I wonder if you take a look at that and have a suggestion on how to correct that.
Yes, so we have, and we acknowledge that that's a bit of a challenging location because of the cemetery. But there is an opportunity there. We've actually presented at the community workshop, because that location did come up during the community workshop. Knowing that we had heard some feedback from the community about that location, we had actually come up with a little diagram or scheme of what that could look like. So I don't know if we have that slide available, but if not, what we can do, I'll verbally describe it as best as I can. So an opportunity there would be, right now there's a left turn lane that takes you, a northbound left turn lane that takes you onto Blocker Drive, I believe, it's right there at this transit station. So you could remove that left turn pocket, have a shared through left lane, and that would provide space for a cycling facility that would continue north. It would require modifying, there we go, there's the diagram. It would require modifying the signal to account for that kind of lane configuration change. But that is a way to continue that cycling facility along the corridor.
Thank you.
I'm going to do Councilwoman Davis.
Thank you very much. We've been in close contact over the last year. So I just want to, first of all, thank you and thank David for your hard work and your accessibility and your thorough outreach. I've, known many people in the community who've had opportunities to come to meetings, to chime in. So thank you so much for all of that. Just for Council to Alice, you were asking about those numbers, is they're actually probably even higher, right? Because it necessitates reporting that you've been injured. And if you've just been run off the road by a car into a ditch and you don't report it, or you don't go to the hospital, or somebody at the hospital doesn't do the reporting, that doesn't get counted. So there's likelihood that these numbers are actually even higher. And, my hope is that we can get ahead of this as biking becomes more popular and more people are moving here that want this, our numbers aren't increasing, right? We're seeing consistent decrease. So there's that. My one question that continues to come up, and as part, we had a public comment here as well, is looking at the feasibility of some of the roads like Nevada Street and Lincoln Way, where you have the speed and volume necessitate the separated bike path, but the space simply is not going to allow it. As part of the safety aspect of it, is there recommendations that we can slow traffic, that we can, because I'm coming up on 4,000 miles of biking in this town. I've biked nearly every one of these roads. If people just slowed down, it would be dramatically less terrifying, right? If you're hit by somebody going 25 miles per hour, there's a less likely chance of a serious injury compared to somebody going 35 or 45, right?
Mhm.
Is that included or considered in this plan? Because I don't want projects to not be done because it's like, oh, well, we can't do this dramatic thing. It's like, if we can slow people down, we don't have to do so much.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is yes. The safety action plan will include essentially a toolbox of countermeasures
Okay.
that identify things like reducing vehicle travel speeds. And in the interim, because you're right that there are some of the recommended facilities that are very aggressive in terms of trying to provide those comfortable facilities for cyclists in particular. So the plan will include some statements based on our working with city staff that acknowledge that this is ultimately where we hope to go. But acknowledging that maybe in the interim, getting from 0 to 100 may not be possible day one, particularly with the costs of potentially implementing a facility like that. And hence why these two plans are actually being prepared together,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of symbiosis between these two. So you can lean on the safety action plan to say, we want to implement traffic calming, for example, along roads that have higher speeds than are desired, based on the context of those roadways, as well as saying, maybe we're not able to implement those class 4 separated bikeways day one, but maybe we can still implement a class 2 bike lane or bicycle boulevard type treatments that include those traffic calming devices that still don't that complement what you want to do in the future, but still achieve short-term or near-term gains as well.
Cool, thank you. And then in terms of, will you prioritize projects in the final presentation, or kind of tell us, suggest where to start based on a road that's maybe wide enough and ready for something versus a street that is going to take more work?
Yeah, so part of the development of the plans will include a prioritization process. Part of that is looking at the data, so looking at what are the corridors that have the highest crashes, where are the areas that the improvements can make the biggest difference. But we're also considering community feedback or council member feedback in terms of the prioritization as well. So we've heard from the community about certain corridors or certain areas that they would like to see prioritized, and that is a factor that we account for as well.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Riddell Harris?
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. I know I've gotten a lot of feedback of people who are really excited about this and who have been talking about this for a while. So thank you for this. Couple of quick questions. Part of active transportation is not just bikes, but walking. So where are the identified new sidewalks that we need to be putting in? I know that Maidu is woefully low on sidewalks and some other places are too.
Yeah, so we don't have the tool available right now, but I did identify a map of all the missing sidewalks along city streets. It's predominantly in kind of, I'll call it like the southeast part of the city. So up near Roby Point, kind of in the neighborhoods that are kind of uphill of downtown. And there's also some neighborhoods up along Dairy Road, as well as I think west of 80 as well, where we've identified the need for implementing sidewalks. So the plan will include a list of sidewalk improvements. And again, those similar to the bikeways, the sidewalk improvements will be identified based on priority. Prioritization with regards to sidewalks is primarily looking at areas that are near kind of key destinations.
Okay.
So areas near schools, parks, business districts, public facilities, those areas where there are maybe no sidewalks on either side of the road, those typically get the higher priority in terms of prioritization. But again, we're open to feedback. That part of the tool that we have out there is residents can go in and really select, hey, for this bikeway or this sidewalk, this is high, medium, or low priority for me. And so we're taking that feedback into account as well.
I know that PCTBA has been working on safe routes to school, and they aren't necessarily safe routes to school always. So I guess, do you kind of map out the neighborhoods where people live and try to figure out how the kids would be walking to school as part of that?
So yeah, the part of the underlying planning kind of considerations are the land use. So what is in the area. one thing that we don't have a lot of data on is like existing like walking numbers, but we, based on just the key destinations and the land uses, we try to identify what are those areas that would most benefit from those improvements.
Okay.
With regards to safe routes to school, usually those are kind of like very specific like projects, like
Yeah.
identify those gaps between a neighborhood and a school site that need improvement.
Yeah, like
So,
putting a bike lane on 49 that's not protected is a little,
yeah.
I don't know if I'd have my kid right on that. Another question I had is for a lot of these, there's some protected lanes that would require space, like Councilwoman Davis was saying. For example, Auburn Folsom, that kind of has a space, but more if you cut it down to one lane in each direction. So was there any looking at whether that's a feasible thing to do based on the amount of traffic and all the other considerations that would have to go into that?
Yeah, so we have the benefit of having collected a bunch of traffic data for the general plan update. And so we were able to look at least the existing traffic volumes along these roadways. You know, the general plan is currently in the process of identifying kind of a final land use plan. Once we have that, we'll be able to project out what the future demands are on some of these facilities. Based on that initial assessment, there are roadways like Auburn Folsom, particularly when you are on the southern part of Auburn Folsom, so like north of Maidu Drive, where the traffic volumes are low enough today to do what we call a road diet, which is taking away a travel lane in each direction and replacing that with a center two-way left turn lane and then more robust cycling facilities along the shoulders. So we do have a diagram that can show that shows what that looks like. Some of the concerns that we've heard from the community about that are, you know, as you get to the higher traffic sections of Auburn Folsom, so when you're down by High Street with all the high schoolers going to Placer High or going down towards the courthouses, all those trips are going to and from I-80. There's been a little more concern from the community about how that work. And to be completely honest, there would be some traffic challenges when you implement down on that stretch of the corridor. Not to say that it can't be done, but it's just a little more challenging when you get down on that stretch of the corridor. The benefit of the center two-way left turn lane, though, even in a stretch like, say, by Pacific Avenue, where there's not a lot of driveways along Auburn Folsom, it does provide, say, if you have an ambulance or a fire engine that needs to get through the corridor, they could potentially use that center two-way left turn lane to get around traffic as they pull off to the shoulder and adjacent to the bike lanes, and the emergency responders can use that center two-way left turn lane to respond to an incident in South Auburn.
Okay, thank you. I think that was it. So thank you very much.
Councilwoman Dowden Cavillo.
Yes, thank you very much. I did have the opportunity to sit in on the virtual meeting. It was like a 2-hour presentation and some dialogue as well. So I appreciate that. I really was able to kind of dive deep into this, and I asked a lot of questions at that time. So I appreciate that. First, I wanted to say thank you to Councilwoman Davis with regards to, you know, potentially using traffic calming devices as a means by proposing or encouraging or providing, is what I want to say, bike safety. I appreciate the opportunity to look outside the box on that, because some of the bike safety measures, the class 4, for example, that is a pretty aggressive way. And sometimes it just doesn't, even though there might be the need for it, it's just not feasible, period. And so I like the ability to look outside the box and look at traffic calming as an opportunity. I also, when we talked about the class 4, I had asked about emergencies or what if someone needed to pull over, and because right now that if your car is breaking down, you got a flat or whatever, you can kind of pull over. And if you had that hard barrier, you eliminate that. And then if you really just have the one lane, it can present quite a problem, as a safety hazard for the cars and for the bikes. And so I liked the barriers that did allow, maybe it's a soft barrier. So versus a concrete planter or trees or a curb. I saw somewhere where they put like a 3-inch curb, and people were walking across, tripping over the curb because they weren't anticipating that was there. And that was not a good thing either. But, exploring those kinds of things too, they have those, they're like the ballards that bend, and so that if there is an emergency or something, that someone could get over, and being able to have bike safety, but also make sure that we're keeping the roadways safe as well. So, let's see, I know that we talked about, or in the plan, you've talked about a possibility of using the UP property, as a bike trail. And, right now UP has been pretty much no, they've been fencing their right of way. They don't want anybody in their right of way, period, for safety. And it's a liability. Even if it makes a lot of sense, it's a liability issue. I mean, the minute that a poor child gets hit by a train so I know that there's the desire to kind of keep that in there because it's a plan, but I did want to make sure that it's prefaced that it's highly unlikely that we'll ever be able to pursue that. In other words, there are many aspects of the plan that, and to me, it would be easier to implement than, I wouldn't want to put all my eggs in one basket and pursue that just because it's in the plan. I wouldn't want someone to say, look, you put this in the plan, therefore you thought it was okay and we should pursue it. I just want the plan to preface the fact that it is incredibly difficult, if not impossible. So, maybe someday, but the plan will probably be outdated by the time, UP would ever give that flexibility. But in any event, I do appreciate the amount of time that's gone into this and the amount of outreach. I know that Council Member Davis has spent a lot of time and energy on this and attending the events. And so I do appreciate that there's been a lot of outreach. And again, I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to participate virtually because that was very, it was educational for me. And I asked a lot of questions, didn't I? So, yeah, so really, I didn't, it was just really those things. Again, I don't want to rehash everything that I brought up, but I wanted just to make those points. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions and I appreciate your thoughtful presentation. So, a question I had is with traffic calming, do you recommend roundabouts anywhere or is that outside your purview?
So what we've identified are those specific intersections where intersection improvements could be implemented. A roundabout would be like one of those options available to the city. We haven't gotten into the details specifically of saying like at this intersection, like implement a roundabout. At this point, we've left it a little bit more ambiguous and open, saying like at these intersections, you could do things like tighten curb radiuses so that turning movements are a little bit slower. Or roundabouts if where feasible, but that would require kind of like a further study down the line to verify like, okay, this is the right location implementation for that. You'd have to do some sort of traffic analysis to verify that that's actually.
Because I think they're a really good opportunity to calm traffic roundabouts and it'd be nice to know where would be a good spot.
Yeah, there's been recent studies that actually show that not only are they great for traffic calming in terms of reducing vehicle speeds, but they're also good for reducing those fatal and severe crashes as a result. And so they will be a key item in the toolbox, so to speak, of improvements to consider when you're looking at safety improvements in the city.
Okay. And so speaking of key items in the toolbox, I know you will have a question later from someone in the audience here about the roads, the older roads in Auburn that you indicated were not able to have sidewalks or bike lanes because of the nature of them. But is there something that will be put in your study to show that there's opportunities to calm the traffic or to make safe bike opportunities and pedestrian opportunities for even those roads?
Yeah, so that's why probably in a lot of those roadways that are kind of, like I said, near Placer High School and kind of around downtown, we were showing those class 3 bike routes as opposed to anything more robust just because of the nature of those roadways.
Well, I was talking more like Aeolia and those roads, the roads that don't have opportunities for anything.
Yeah, so I mean, there are potential strategies you could consider depending on like what's available, right? Those could range from things like chicanes, so things that do help kind of slow traffic down. If you're looking at even narrowing it, you could look at one-way traffic strategies, depending on like what the roadway widths are. I know some of those roadways are 2 ways, but they're very narrow. There are also, there's opportunities to look at shared streets. So all those different treatments, though, you want to look at on a case-by-case basis, because when you're looking at those in detail, you want to make sure like you're considering all the contextual factors to determine like, is this the right implementation?
But they won't necessarily be put in your report. It's just,
It may not be like a specific, like, Placer Street from point A to point B should be, a shared street, for example. But it will include like in this area, these are the types of strategies you may want to consider
Okay.
given the constraints that are there.
okay. And then I just had a couple, do you have any statistics on the fatalities or injuries with regard to the bikeway classifications? Yeah, I understand the strategy, higher volume, higher speed gets a much better classification, but do you have any statistics on that? And to go along with that, when you are on for instance, a class 2 bike lane, is it better to put eyelets there, and is that done, or why isn't that recommended, or is it recommended?
So, take your first part of your question, if there's data regarding like crash rates with the different facility types, I would honestly need to kind of look back in the data that we do have accessible based on other locations, because Auburn has very limited data at this point based on just the limited
Yes.
number of bicycle facilities. One thing that we do know is when we look at other cities and counties that have implemented the class 4 type facilities, is that you typically do see an uptick in ridership, number of people bicycling or walking in that
Mhm.
area. You also tend to see vehicle, depending on the treatment and how it was implemented, slower vehicle speeds as a result. And so when you do see those outcomes, you like the necessary or the typical resulting factor of that is reduced crash frequency and reduced severity.
Okay.
Uh,
And then the other question was with regard to how come, like in the class 2, they don't recommend some sort of little barrier an inexpensive type barrier?
Yeah, so that was kind of the idea behind the class 4 facilities. Essentially, it's taking those on-street bike lanes
Mhm.
and then providing some sort of, physical or vertical element that provides that extra level of separation. So it's relatively, I would say, a relatively recent development within the last 5 to 10 years. You see other cities really across the country that have started to implement that, including up and down the valley. So I've seen improvements done in the city of Fresno, city of Modesto, in small towns like the city of Ripon have implemented facilities like that.
Mhm.
But they're a relatively kind of new type of facility that's getting implemented around the state and around the country. So that's why you don't see those as frequently.
There's a lot of very creative way to create barriers so that the cars can really understand that there's bikes there too.
Mhm.
Anyway, I will open it up to the public. Does the public have any input on this matter?
Good evening, Council. I'm Joe Looney. I've been a resident of Prospect Hill neighborhood for 33 years. And I have two comments that I'd like to make. And I submitted these in writing, so they are in your packet. The first comment is about goals and priority. And the second comment is about a specific opportunity for a shared use path for a safe route to schools. So first of all, thank you for the workshop. That was very helpful. Was able to sit in on that and learned a lot. The proposed bike lanes are very comprehensive and the sidewalks, but as we've already mentioned, some roads, streets are just space constrained and cannot, for such new facilities, are older streets and neighborhoods that were built over a century, designed and built over a century ago. So some of those constraints make construction of standard sidewalks and bike lanes infeasible or prohibitively expensive. And when that occurs, then those neighborhoods drop lower on the priority list or drop off the active transportation list completely, because it's like we just don't have the space to do any of these new facilities here. And that leads to inequities. So some neighborhoods can reach the desired outcomes of mobility, health, environmental outcomes, and then others can't. But fortunately, as we've been hearing, there's multiple active transportation options, strategies for such streets and neighborhoods. Gaps in the sidewalks, and I appreciate seeing that on the website, seeing the gaps in the sidewalks. But those gaps in the sidewalk infrastructure do not have to equate to gaps in walkability. You can create walkability in these neighborhoods without sidewalks. So to ensure the benefits of active transportation are realized across all of our diverse neighborhoods, I'd like to recommend that the ATP include the following goal or in the ATP in some manner. Auburn neighborhoods that have limited opportunity for traditional sidewalks and bike lanes shall be included in the active transportation network by using traffic calming, shared streets, road diets, and alternative multi-use pathways so that these neighborhoods just don't get left out. Actually, by prioritizing such neighborhoods may be the fastest way to increase walkability in the city overall, because the strategies are faster and less expensive than building complete new sidewalks and bicycle lanes. So a couple of strategies for that are let neighborhoods take the lead. Neighborhood residents, business owners, first responders can work together from the beginning. Neighborhood groups can be the catalyst. They know they're the ones walking these streets. So and the neighborhoods are so diverse. In my neighborhood, things change fairly radically from one block to the next. So what works in one block may not work in another block. Also, the use of temporary or pop-up projects.
Joe,
Yeah.
it's time, but if you want to just
Okay, I'm sorry.
wrap it up, that's
Okay.
fine.
So anyway, the temporary pop-up projects are help the city get feedback and then can figure out the more standard infrastructure that will work there. The other comment I had is in the packet. It's about a specific location. So I can, if I've hit that limit, I'll let you read that. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your input.
Hi, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Alex Anderson. I live in the Sky Ridge neighborhood. I was a member of the focus group doing the general plan for 2045. So I saw some of the ATP element in there. But also before that, I went to several of the community outreach meetings, and I went to some of the follow-on community outreach meetings that happened this year. And the one thing that comes up over and over again in those meetings really surprised me was how many people really do care about walkability and bikeability. It just over and over, that theme was really consistent. I noticed that it didn't really matter which table you were sitting at, but that theme was really common. So I appreciate what the engineering team has done on this. It looks like a really comprehensive approach, and really do support it. One thing I want to say also is that everybody knows e-bikes are proliferating, which sounds terrific, but one of the things that's in the bike industry that's been disappointing is that even though people go out and buy e-bikes, once they find out the infrastructure doesn't make them feel safe, they may just park it in their garage for a while. I have a neighbor who has a very nice cargo bike, and she hasn't been on it in well over a year because of her concern about infrastructure. So traffic calming measures are fantastic. I've seen where they've worked really well in some neighborhoods and other places I've lived. So I'd love to see those pursued in areas where we can't get decent bike lanes. And then of course the walkability is really important. I'm close enough to Old Town that we almost always walk to Old Town, occasionally bike, and then the bike is for anything over a couple miles. But really happy to see this plan and really happy to see the attention you all have put into it. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Any other input from the public? Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, I wanted to just to make a statement from my colleagues. I did want to let you know that, really this is the best way to address these issues, the active transportation plan and the comprehensive safety action plan. This is where you address the issues of mobility and walkability and so forth. But I also want to let you know that once we do have an adopted plan in place, there are monies available at state and federal level and through SACOG for the implementation of plans. So
It'll help us receive grants.
yes, it will. There's a SACOG, like I said, specifically SACOG monies where they were able to provide quite a bit for communities implementation. So this is the right route to go versus just arbitrarily deciding, are we going to have a bike lane here, what have you. So I appreciate that we're doing it this way.
Thank you. And I think we've taken into consideration the start with the neighborhoods, and I like the idea of people who are leaving their bikes in the garage. Hopefully we can get them out and get going. And I appreciate that. SACOG, I think we need to look into all that so that we can not just have this sit on the shelf, but really utilize it. So thank you very much. We were just supposed to receive the report and that's it. Did you have something to say?
Real quick, thank you very much from our engineering team, but also thank you very much for our staff team, because Tia Klump, our planning director, as well as Minjel Dean, have put extensive amount of time in this as well. Thank you very much for Sean Rebea, city manager, for allowing this to move forward. So that was it.
Thank you. Thank all of you and our staff. Really appreciate it. Excellent job. And this is a big step forward. So thank you. So we've received that and we will move on to the next item, which is our fiscal year 24-25 year-end financial update and fiscal year 25-26 quarterly budget adjustment.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council, Gretchen Hoskins, your finance director. So the action requested for this item is to receive a presentation of the 24-25 year-end financials and adopt a resolution to approve the Q1 budget amendments for the new fiscal year 25-26. A little bit of background on this item. So as we all know, fiscal year 24-25 was a difficult year of financial decisions, constraints, and progress. The adopted budget was $35 million, balanced with the use of some one-time funds. Not ideal, but some one-time revenues for ongoing costs were in the budget, and with a commitment to address a multi-year general fund deficit. At regular intervals, the City Council received financial updates and gave direction while we all collectively achieved the elimination of the deficit. We did have to reduce our labor force by about 10 employees through attrition, departments reducing and deferring operational costs where possible, and taking steps towards boosting some revenue sources such as the TOT tax measure. Throughout the year, budget adjustments were approved, mostly from external funded new expenses, surmounting to a $38 million budget. Nonetheless, we maintained a general fund surplus projection of about $400,000 to $500,000 to end fiscal year 24-25 once we started to take those budget reduction measures. So the year-end report is important because it's the preliminary final result of the fiscal year. The next step after this would be to hear from our auditors, likely in the January timeframe. So this pretty much wraps up where we believe we're going to end the fiscal year that ended June 30th, 2025. The finance department has been very busy over the last 60 days plus. I thought it was very interesting to find that we had processed over $4.1 million in revenues within that short time period after the end of the fiscal year. That's 10% of the city's total revenues during that time frame. I've been preparing for the external audit for fiscal year 24-25. That's our next milestone. We've been answering a lot of external auditor questions, preparing financial and narrative pages in order to publish the next iteration of the ACFR, which is the Annual Comprehensive Report. Spending a moment on fund balances, this is the best way to demonstrate the financial condition of each city fund as of the end of the fiscal year. Fund balance, as a reminder, is just the rolling balance year over year since the creation of the fund for what's remaining in total revenues less total expenditures. Surplus fund balance, or rather a positive balance, is considered a revenue source for the fiscal year in which the funds have carried into, but caution must be taken not to assume all of the fund balance is for ongoing costs. So as you look at these ending fund balances for fiscal year 24-25, all of these have carried into fiscal year 25-26, the year that we're in, mostly already incorporated into the budget, but where our estimates differed from these actual results, those are where some new decisions can come forward in the form of budget adjustments that you'll see a little bit more of farther in this presentation. So zooming in on some of our major funds, I wanted to highlight where we're at. The airport fund remains healthy, $2.6 million fund balance. We did use $417,000 of that as part of balancing the airport's budget. The remaining funds remain available for future capital projects. The sewer fund has an ending balance of $8.7 million. We did use $2.9 million of that to balance the current year budget, leaving $6.7 for future projects. Transportation and gas tax began the year with a deficit or close to a deficit and have rebounded to a small collective surplus of about $8,000. Transit fund has a deficit of $81,000, and we're aware of that, and we're evaluating what we can do to ensure the deficit does not continue year over year, but that we're spending within our means. There was a lot of activity in transit. You recall some bus purchases and such, mostly funded from external funds, but there did end up being a small deficit that we'll take care of. Then the Park Preserve Impact Fee Fund. This is a unique one where there's a year-over-year deficit. It's been steady at $158,000 due to the way the fund was established several years ago. The impact fees from a very small footprint area are intended to pay back the deficit over time. It's going to take quite a while. The closed landfill deficit at $1.1 million continues to be addressed by the city's contract with Recology. Recently renewed that contract, and hopefully we'll begin turning, or the intent is we'll begin turning the corner towards improving that deficit. Looking at the general fund, there's an ending balance of $7.6 million. However, $5.9 million of that was already included in our adopted budget through earmarking for reserves, for economic contingencies, a capital reserve, et cetera, which are summarized there. And then the focus then is on what's the difference between what we factored into the budget and where we're seeing the end of the fiscal year materialize. And that's $1.7 million. And that's mostly caused by one-time occurrences of $1.1 million and ongoing occurrences totaling $625,000. To further explain that, a lot of the deviations in what was projected had to do with the timing of grants, pending results of accounting cleanup, and conservative projections, which are intentionally meant to project as close as you think without going over. And so the $625,000 ongoing fund balance, there are a couple of things going on with that, in that we did come in a little higher in some of our revenues for the year, particularly from property taxes and TOT business license revenues. Those were higher than our previous projections. And we also but we had an opportunity to replace our phone system costs, which saved us money overall, looking at about $20,000 in ongoing savings there. With the 625 ongoing fund balance, when we were developing the budget for 25-26, we were also negotiating our new labor MOUs. We also did a small staffing reorg, and we had already earmarked about 357 as our estimated cost for those things from the fund balance or surplus that we knew we were going to have. So that amount is immediately taken off of the 625. And then you'll hear more about some budget adjustments. 20,000 in addition is recommended at this point for budget adjustments for ongoing items. So the big difference is 1.1 million in one-time occurrences. Most of this is associated with the timing of grants and reimbursements. You approved earlier on your consent agenda, thank you very much, a grant management policy. One of the reasons that came forward because it was the first step that we wanted to take to address how we're managing grants. A lot of the projections for grants that we had didn't have all the information. There was no mechanism in place really for finance and departments and staff to communicate and coordinate and know exactly what was going on with grants, as well as the timing of when we should be claiming reimbursement for grants. There are certain times, like June 30th of every year has to be done. Some of those things weren't happening perfectly. So this grant management policy is going to get at this issue right here of having a $1.1 million fund balance for these one-time things. That's not the norm. So we're going to clean up our grant management and get ahead of that for next year is the goal. So of the 1.1 million, there's a lot of it is, for example, grant revenue from a prior year of 219,000. That doesn't even belong in this conversation. It's for a prior year. There was some reimbursement from CAL FIRE of $190,000. That could have been better communication between finance and departments, but we don't know to talk to each other if we don't know, that type of thing. There was interest investment earnings of $50,000 more than we anticipated. That's great news. We like our investment earnings to come in. And then on the expenditure side, we have some decreases that are part of that. 610,000, where we are carrying over expenses for the shaded fuel break and fire of 191,000. So that's just carrying over an expense from one year to the next. It's a one-time situation. And then, yeah, the whole grants tracking and reimbursement and timing, that was $247,000 of that. Our public safety departments, our two largest departments, fire and police, did an excellent job in managing their budgets, and together $170,000 of savings materialized there, considering that as one-time situations where things have either carried over or didn't need to be spent at that time for a project or a one-time equipment purchase, those types of things. And then lastly, we had a credit from Tyler, which is our big financial system, of $57,000. That was a credit for 3 years of the modules that we weren't using. So we were able to get our money back for that. The general fund multi-year forecast, which we show during these presentations, has been updated, but it's only been updated for the preliminary results of 24-25 and how that extrapolates out into the future years. So in order to show the one-time impact I've added a dotted red line to the model to smooth out the one-time occurrences if they weren't there. So you'll see the $625,000 immediately drops down into the current year we're in, 25-26, because of the labor contracts and reorg that we knew that we were going to have, and we're going to have to use some of that fund balance to go into the new year and go forward. So with consideration of the year we're in, 25-26, budget adjustments are now possible given the $1.7 million fund balance. So as mentioned earlier, 20,000 is recommended in ongoing uses and 710,000 is recommended for one-time uses. As you'll see, and I'll go over the adjustments in the next slide, only the most critical adjustments are being recommended right now because it's extremely early in the fiscal year. One of the situations is we haven't gotten the results of our audit for the year that we're addressing here for the preliminary end of. The audit just started, however, it's going well. We don't see any signs for any big adjustments, but it's still early and we don't want to recommend using all of our fund balance until we have closure on the audit, and that's going to be done in December, if not sooner. The other pause on using all of this fund balance right now is usually at mid-year during a fiscal year, we have a lot more information. Right now, we don't have hardly any of the revenue that we know we're going to get. At mid-year, we have property taxes, we have a huge chunk of our sales tax, and we can project more. So holding off until mid-year in February, March time period to make some of the remaining decisions is ideal because we just have more information to be cautious and not end up back in a deficit situation by getting ahead of our choices. So this is the list of the recommended for now Q1 budget adjustments to the current fiscal year. So just to summarize, not go through every single line item, but there is an adjustment being recommended for the sewer, transit, and general funds to include an increase associated with this year's unfunded pension liability payment. Together, it totals $175,000. As council knows, the unfunded pension liability is an ongoing issue for us. We will be turning along with the mid-year to address the options that we've been promising to bring to council to address that. The sewer fund includes a shift in capital budgets from machinery to vehicles of $40,000. The CDBG defederalized budget includes an increase of $80,000 for the business assistance grants that council approved. That was approved after the budget was adopted, so we're just truing up to have budget authority should further awards be given for those grants. The asset forfeiture fund is increased by $541,000 for one-time drug enforcement agency funds awarded to the city. The use of those funds is not yet determined, so it's only the revenue side of that fund being adjusted. Several grant-related budget adjustments in planning are necessary. This is part of our review of grants. So a lot of in and out movement for Safe Streets for All, Domes infill, and the Auburn-Bowman interconnection. We're moving some line items around to make one-to-one relationships for each grant we have, but we're also truing up the budgets to the remaining available in those grants for this fiscal year to spend. It was kind of a nice cleanup effort there. The building maintenance budget is increasing by $463,000, but that's already for the solar projects that have been approved for the fire and police department, approved after the budget was already set. The nuance here is that when we put forward the solar agenda item, we were recommending the funding source be mostly from our new capital reserve that we had established at $500,000. With this new one-time fund balance, we don't have to immediately almost obliterate that capital reserve. We can just shift it around and use the fund balance instead maintain our capital reserve for future capital improvement planning discussions down the road. Let's see, the remaining adjustments, I'll go back to that. The remaining adjustments here, I didn't touch on every one of them, but they're smaller in nature and they're really geared to making sure that departments have the expenditure authority that they need for any new expenditures or changes in revenues that have come up since the adoption of the budget. So approval of these budget adjustments of $730,267, plus those that have already come before council as part of separate department agenda items this year, result in an increase of the total fiscal year 25-26 city budget from 37 million to 38.6 million. So that rounds out the year-end update and the first quarter budget adjustment requests. Our next steps will be to update the city's transparency website with the new budget information. The external audit is underway. Our auditor, ID Bailey, will be here in likely January to present the results of the financial reports and audit. And then we will return for the mid-year after that in approximately February and March of the new calendar year. So with that, any questions from council?
Do you have any questions from council? No? Sure, Councilman Holmes?
Yeah, I think this is
Okay.
much improved on where I thought we were. And want to thank you and all of the people that worked together to make this happen. I guess we need to approve the yeah.
I had a quick question
Okay.
though.
Yes, Councilwoman Riddell Harris?
Sorry, I just need a reminder. The one thing that I didn't, on the list of changes that I didn't remember was the Auburn Bowman interconnection. What is that project? Trying to remember what that is. It didn't ring up any bells.
So when the county and the city got together, the county transferred its Green Means Go grant to the city to look at the potential annexation of Bowman. Their Green Means Grow grant was for the Bowman area to look at potentially providing housing up there. They transferred the grant to us. What you see up here is the result of that grant transfer to us.
Got it. Okay, I didn't know it was called that. So, okay,
Right.
great. Thank you. That's all I had. And I also wanted to add my thanks to you and to all the staff because we wouldn't be in the financial shape that we're in right now. I know it's not wonderful, but it's much better than it was. And I know the staff all worked really hard to get us to there. So I really appreciate all the staff's hard work in all the different departments for making this happen. So thank you.
Do I have any public input?
I had a comment. Are
Oh.
we still? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, before we went to public. I too would just like to thank staff, all of our staff. We are in a much better place than we were 2 years ago by far. And there have been a lot of, frugal spending and I just really appreciate where we are now. And I'm in support of the budget adjustments as proposed. And we just need to be, continue to be conservative in our spending and smart about sustainable funding for ongoing costs versus, funding one-time only savings with sustainable projects and things of that nature. So, but thank you very much. Really do appreciate it. Thank you.
And again, public input? No public input? Okay. Then, yeah, thank you very much. Very thoughtful presentation. Appreciate it. And job well done by you and the whole staff. So excellent job. Very, very happy with where we are right now. And we will continue on the road to going forward with a very positive budget, but we'll go from there. And we need to now receive the presentation and approve the quarterly budget
Like
adjustment. So
the motion that
Okay.
we receive the budget, the financial FY 24-25 budget, and by resolution approve the budget adjustments to the first quarter.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Riddell Harris.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Down Calvillo.
Aye.
Holmes.
Aye.
Mayor Amara.
Yes, thank you very much. That passes. Now we have the city manager report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Reports on the dais, there's copies in the back. So just a couple quick things. On Wednesday this week, the city will have the virtual cannabis workshop. So the information on that is on the city's website. But this is the second kind of town hall thing that we're holding to discuss retail cannabis within the city. Starts at, is it 6 o'clock on Wednesday, and it's on Zoom.
Rose room.
On Zoom.
Oh, Zoom. That's
Zoom.
Yes.
I heard
Zoom.
really positive things about the first one.
Yeah,
so
it was
Thank
good.
you to Jonathan. and
Yeah.
John.
You did a great job. On the Public Works Department, so Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, PCTPA, is holding, they're conducting their annual unmet transit needs assessment process, which is launched with the survey. That's available now through October 31st. Each year, PCTPA asks the members of the public throughout Placer County to submit comments about their unmet transit needs. And so that information is on the PCTPA website. So make sure to, if you have a concern about unmet transportation needs, fill out that survey so PCTPA can see those. And then lastly, just wanted to recognize some of our employees on their anniversaries is it for September? I'm all mixed up here. For September. So Alex Lawton and the fire department, 6 years of service. Tamiko Silva and police department, 4 years of service, and Timothy Manello in the police department, 2 years of service. So employees are kind of the lifeblood of this organization, make everything work. So thank you all for all you do for us. That's it. I can answer questions if you have questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, future agenda items, discussion and identification of topics that require attention in upcoming meetings. This section allows council members to propose new ideas, unresolved issues or projects. Does anyone here have anything? Yes?
Yes, I've got, I had a meeting with Congressman Kiley's staff earlier today, and they are going to look for some grant funding to help us get our Carnegie Library building fully
Great,
back up and with ADA and so forth, the elevator and what have you. So,
great.
and
Thank you.
I also wanted to mention that I'd like to at some point propose that we work on making Auburn a cultural district. Which opens up more grant opportunities from the state.
Okay, I think we kind of discussed that. Or you brought it up before.
Is that something the Arts Commission has looked into? I
Yeah,
feel like that would.
The Arts
I think
Commission.
That would maybe live with them.
You,
cultural district?
Do you, can you give us an update next time on whether or not the Arts Commission is in favor of that?
Well,
Maybe not now, since it's not on the agenda.
we'll have it on our next agenda, I guess.
I'll talk to the city manager about that. Okay, so that we're into the committee reports. Do you have
actually,
anything else for your committee report?
I wanted to, for future agenda items, I thought that's the item we were on.
Well, it was.
Oh.
It's okay.
But with that, I'd like to say something on that.
Sure.
One thing that I would like to consider, and it's too late for this legislative session, but oftentimes we receive emails, especially from the League of Cities, asking us to take a support position or an opposition position on legislation. And, you know, in order for us to do that, it needs to be agendized, and then we have to discuss it. And really, it's too late at that point in time, right? And so what I'd like to do for, you know, for the next legislative session is maybe have an item on the agenda, like not right now, but where we can talk about some policies and just like very general policies. So for example, if there's legislation that is supporting local control, you know, if we can agree that we all, you know, majority of us support local control, then we can have, you know, take a position of support, send a letter of support to the legislature on a bill that proposes that. It would just be good. I know a lot of cities and counties establish these legislative priorities, and then bills don't have to come to the council or the board of supervisors because they've already established that policy. And then the city manager can act immediately. So, because otherwise we just miss out on an opportunity to weigh in on something that might be.
Is that something we can discuss at the strategic plan?
Yeah, we can talk about it. Then I just wanted to, Sean and I have kind of talked about it, but
Line item or something?
Yeah, it's something that's been on the radar for us to get done. Gary and I were just kind of whispering to each other that we're going to be bringing forward a modification to the council's policy handbook stuff. And that could actually be part of that too.
Oh, that
So we
makes
could wrap it into that. So it's all in one place instead of being in
all
different-
over the
different
place.
places.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mhm.
Do you have a committee report?
I do. So last week was a busy committee week. I was at SACOG. We actually had our meeting at Bishop's Pumpkin Farm. It's the first time I've ever been in a barn for a meeting. But we met there in Wheatland because we were taking a short tour of Beale Air Force Base, and we really got it was very interesting. Bishop's is a huge economic driver for the city of Wheatland, which is very tiny. And they talked about some of the traffic issues they have, and as a result of the largest personal pumpkin picking farm in the country in Wheatland. Also had Pioneer Community Energy, where we had a really good discussion about the power charge and difference adjustment and how that impacts our electrical rate. We're thinking that fee, which is established by PG&E, is going to increase this year, so we'll have to see how that will weigh into our rate-making process after the first of the year. So just wanted to report on those two items. Oh, and Endurance Capital of the World Committee also met, and we're moving forward with the installation of our water bottle filling station, which we had approved, so, in the
Oh,
art.
that's great.
Yeah.
And
you.
you were at the cannabis meeting.
I was, yes, I tried to tag team and do both at the same time, so they're both at 6 o'clock here at City Hall.
Thank you.
So the council, when we first approved it, the installation was along the restroom wall because there's plumbing already there for intake and outtake. And so it looks like we're moving forward there. There was some discussion about maybe moving it to the Lukens fountain, but that's a historical landmark and really it's just not feasible from an infrastructure perspective because the plumbing is in the wall of the building.
So it's under the umbrella?
Yes, it'll be along the wall of the restroom at this point in time. So that's what we're looking at. So there'll be a water bottle filling station there.
That's
Yeah,
great. That's
so-
wonderful.
Mhm.
Okay. You have any committee reports?
No committee report. I just wanted to share that Porch Fest is coming on October 5th. I'm very excited for it. It's music on porches in the race.
It's all volunteer.
It's all
Doesn't
volunteer.
cost anything.
Doesn't cost anything. I'll be doing it by bike. I think there's a group leaving from Poor Choice at 1 o'clock on October 5th.
It's cool. Do you have anything?
Last week I went to the Placer County Economic Development Commission meeting. It was up at North Lake Tahoe. One meeting a year we do up there. And so they talk a lot about their economic development and just kind of, North Lake's just kind of separate a little bit from everybody else. So it's
Yeah.
nice to hear about what's going on there and their housing issues that they have and some tourism. We did talk about the fact that we normally spend 1 out of our 4 meetings a year there. And
Is North Lake incline or is it
it's like Kings Beach and
There.
and North Lake Tahoe
yeah.
City. So, but yeah, it was interesting to hear them. It was interesting to hear all about what they're doing, but then we also kind of brought it back to, we spend a lot of time talking about that specific area. We probably don't spend that amount of time on any of our cities. And so we're going to endeavor to kind of move between cities with meetings and hear more from our economic development folks, because we think that we should be doing a little more exchanging ideas. We normally do a roundtable at the end, but it doesn't really get in depth about what each of the cities is doing. So we're going to try to tweak it a little bit to
great.
get a little bit more information from each other.
Good. Oh, and okay, we met and I can tell you a bunch of things happening. Safe trick or treat, don't forget that, October 31st. It'll be 3 p.m. till 6. And then Old Town is going to have a costume contest that day. And the last co-op, September 8th, oh, that already passed, sorry. October 11th is wine and ale, 1 to 5. And cruise night, did everybody go there? they're done. And Fall Festival, October 25th, 4 to 9 p.m. And Santa, of course, at the Promenade will be around the 13th, 14th, 2021 for pictures. December. Sorry, yeah, December. And then Country Christmas is down in Old Town will be the 13th and the 20th of December. And of course, the Ghost tour is the 18th and 25th of October. And the Saturday after Thanksgiving is the Christmas tree lighting. And there you go. And Porch Fest is October 5th. Yes. So that's that.
I got my tickets for the Ghost Tour.
You
Anybody
lucky-
else?
You lucky. That's hard to get.
They are.
So since I attend, there was sustainability, traffic, and not too much came out of those. But I just want to end it with, we have not had dinner probably. We met at 5 o'clock. So I will adjourn unless somebody has something else to say.